Aloha and welcome back to Morpheus Reviews for Comics. We were gone for a while I was on vacation, so this video will be different. It will be the 6-month review of all 4 of the Sandman Universe comics. So without further ado, we will get into it, starting with The Dreaming. So we start off with Dream Gone. The dream is falling apart, a rift is forming, and we learn more about Dora and the blank people in the dreaming. Lucian pretends to be Dream to try to bring order back into the realm, and the portrait of Dream is crumbling. Then we learn about the origin of Merv. Erzuli in the House of Whispers crashes into the dreaming. Matthew tries to talk to Dora, and then Merv releases Judge Gallows from the black chest. Then he takes over the dreaming by force, but tries to say that it's not by force. Then Ziggy, Dora's friend, shoots Judge Gallo in the head, and he heals immediately, and he goes to the black chest to take some nightmares out to confront Ziggy and Dora, and he captures them. And meanwhile, while this is going on, Lucian is tricked by what he thinks is the dreaming of a psychiatrist, but it's an agent of Judge Gallows. Then we learn of the history of Cain as he's traveling through the rift. Judge Gallows summons Baku to destroy Ziggy. Then Dora escapes from her imprisonment after Matthew convinces her that she can do whatever she wants. Lucian tricks Judge Gallo into letting go of Dream's helm, and at that point Dora has caught up with them. She attacks Judge Gallows, and her and Lucian jump through the portrait into the in-between and travel into the Fulcrum, which is the former home of destruction. At this point, Judge Gallows continues to wreak havoc. Lucian and Dora have a heart-to-heart. Dora remembers parts of her encounter with the dream, and they attempt to return to the dreaming. Dora makes it through, but Lucian gets trapped in the in-between. He falls to Earth, where he is encountered by Dream, and then abandoned to suffer on the Earth. Which brings us to issue 6, which seems like the conclusion of this chapter of the dreaming. So this is a interesting cover. Just have Dora with her monstrous face, the halfway between face, and a yellow background. And in this one, Dora returns to the dreaming in shambles. The dreaming is in shambles. Judge Gallo has enslaved everyone. This time Abel kills Cain as Cain is trying to sacrifice Abel, turning the tables there, causing some cataclysmic event for some creature to be formed, which Judge Gallows is trying to stop. He sees it as a threat. And in this confusion, Dora destroys Judge Gallows, and the new governor, the new ruler of the dreaming is created, and he claims that he's insane. So with all of that, one thing that we have learned is sometimes the very fear that you see in another and try to take advantage of is the fear that will destroy your own self. Then we have the House of Whispers. So, in the House of Whispers, Uncle Monday and Erzuli are introduced in the House of Whispers, which is a houseboat where Erzuli answers the prayers of her followers. We are introduced to Shakpana briefly, and we also meet in the real world Habibi, Lumi, Maggie, and Latoya. Seems like Maggie is a bit of a practitioner of voodoo. She has found this book, which happens to be the journal of Shakpana. And while the girls are all at home without the parents, they play the game of telephone, where you whisper one thing, the other person tries to whisper the same thing, but it ends up being different. And in the confusion that is caused, Shakpana takes advantage of this miscommunication and works to possess Maggie, to possess Toya, my mistake. But she also is a strong spiritual presence. She bucks him off, throws Shakpana into the in-between, where he's begging for Erzulie to save him, which she does at her own expense, because this causes the House of Whispers to be thrown through the rift into the dreaming. Then Uncle Monday and Erzulie find themselves, they feel like they're dead because their powers are gone. But then they learn upon meeting the characters of the dreaming that they are in the dreaming. And meanwhile, Toya is hospitalized with Cotter's delusion, where she feels as though she's dead, even though medically she is alive. So Maggie comes to console her. When Toya wakes up, she infects Maggie with this same illness. In here, then we also meet the voodoo practitioners that are dedicated to Erzulie. Then Erzulie tries to navigate the House of Whispers out of the dreaming, and she learns that they are indeed stuck when the House of Dreaming is thrown back, or the House of Whispers is thrown back into the dreaming, and it's damaged. So then the characters of the dreaming are helping to rebuild the House of Whispers. And while this is happening, Erzulie encounters the souls of Toya and Maggie, who through the Cotter's delusion have been separated from their bodies. So they're still alive, but their souls are separated. Then Erzulie has a conflict with Turill in her haze of disillusionment of what's happening. She falls into the water and learns that the waters are healing. And while in the water, she saves Uncle Monday, who is also going through some kind of distress, a mental agony. Then Shakpana goes crazy, starts attacking Turill. So Erzulie transforms into her warrior spirit into Erzulie Danter. Toya and Maggie deal with Cotter's delusion, and they learn that they can infect others just by merely touching them, which Toya thinks is fascinating, so she wants to keep doing this, and this causes a disagreement between her and Maggie. So Maggie goes to stay with her friend, while Toya goes out through New Orleans and the French Quarter to infect more and more people. Meanwhile, Shakpana and Turill are sent to the real world to retrieve the journal. And we also learn that during this time, Cotter's delusion has spread around the whole world. And Uncle Monday is going to search through his dreams library for some kind of book that will be helpful. In the real world, then, the Shakpana and Turill race for the book. Then Lord Agwe joins the race. Turill goes to save the children, the girls. And Shakpana and Lord Agwe have a fight, and Lord Agwe is riding on Roger, his devotee in the human world. Shakpana then kills Roger, takes the book, sending Lord Agwe into the dreaming towards Erzulie. And then it seems that Shakpana is also sucked into the rift, into the dreaming. And then we learn Turill has kept the children safe, and Bibi reveals that she has torn out some pages of Shakpana's journal that may be preventing him from taking too much disaster. That brings us to the 6th issue of the House of Whispers. It's really interesting cover here. Kind of a spin on this classic art piece, Americana. So in here, Erzulie attaches Lord Agway's soul to the House of Whispers. So he's no longer his self as a soul. He's no longer riding on a human. He is part of the boat. Uncle Monday has taken some books from the dreaming while chaos ensues with all of the dreaming people. And then back in the real world, at Roger's funeral, the girls' father is there, and the girls come and they talk about Shakpana, how they saw him. So then the altar boy summons Shakpana. They have a struggle with some of Erzulie's other husbands, and then they do end up imprisoning Shakpana, and Erzulie works with Uncle Monday to navigate the House of Whispers out of the dreaming once again. So, with this one, we see that when we are focused on another story, on other problems that are going on around us, the solutions to the problem actually may have been in front of us the whole time. We've just been distracted. So, just going in order of the releases here, coming to Lucifer now, and yeah, Lucifer has been a good one so far. He's living in this tortured existence. Detective John Decker visits his wife Penny, who has brain cancer, and he takes her for a ride, one last ride like good old times. Then the car crashes, but he denies is a double suicide attempt, but it seems sketchy. Anyways, he survives, she dies, and then he flies to Orlando to meet with Robert Ewell, who she mentioned in the car ride. Then we also meet the flashback of Lucifer talking to Caliban, who is his son. Then we go back to Lucifer in the present, who is digging in a hole in this tortured existence, unearthing statues. These statues seem familiar. John Decker escapes from Gately House, where he met Robert Ewell, and then he starts going crazy. Starts seeing things. He meets some demons, or are they just hallucinations? Hard to tell. He goes back to a motel and tries to figure it all out for himself. And then we have a flashback from before where Lucifer is remembering the Furies and how he helped the Furies to find their third sister after she had gone missing. And then we go back to the immediate past, not the present, but also not the past, you know, somewhere in between, where Lucifer is introducing Caliban to Sycorax, or whatever is left of her, which happens to be Caliban's mother. We come back to Lucifer in the present. His wounds are all healed, and he meets and remembers Bill Blake, and they go into this story about Bill Blake, where he's writing this book called The Annulment of Heaven and Hell. Then Decker is going back to Gately House to talk to Robert Ewell again and figure out what is going on there. And then Sycorax, back into the Lucifer realm, comes to the realization that they are caught in this loop. Then we find Jack, and his ghost is whispering in Caliban's ear and confronting Lucifer about why is his mother dead? So, his mother, Sycorax, the Furies, John Decker, Robert Ewell, Penny Decker, Lucifer, Jack, and Caliban weave this tangled web, how they're all connected together. It seems like things are coming to a climax soon. And then we come to issue 5 of Lucifer. Because some of these demons tormenting Lucifer, the control of Jack, the ghost. So what is happening here, we get the full story of Jack and how he tricked Lucifer and trapped him in Sycorax's skull through some type of magic. We learn that the reality of Penny and now has transferred to John Decker's delusions and what seems to be feeling like a tumor, which actually is the presence of Sycorax's voice or essence in their mind, so giving them messages. So Sycorax rescues Lucifer from Jack's torture, where he is cutting off tongues and eyes and noses one at a time, and she fights him off. Then they have a flashback where Lucifer is coming clean about Sycorax and Caliban and how he banished them to this island to be safe, out of sight from his father God. And then Lucifer faces his past and all the people that he's crossed, and the story of Sycorax and Caliban is all coming back. And meanwhile, in the real world, John Decker is crushing Sycorax's skull where they are trapped in, and Lucifer and Sycorax escape. Jack also escapes though. They all end up in the motel room, but there are consequences for Jack since he is not supposed to be alive, and it seems as though he is alive once again. So angels come down, Caliban meets his mother, and Mazikeen is there too. And that all happened in between number 5 and 6. So this is number 6, Sycorax saving the day, carrying Lucifer to safety. So, some things we can take away with this one is no matter how far you run, you cannot outrun your past. And also, when you ask for something, you may get exactly that. So be careful what you ask for. Be specific, because another person who was willing to give what you're asking for to you could be looking how it could benefit them in some way. You won't get what you imagined, but you'll get literally what you asked for. And now the last of the series here, we have Books of Magic. So this one is nice. We'll get to why. But yeah. So we find Timothy Hunter. He's the chosen one to be a magician, but he's ridiculed in school. We find Mad Hetty living in the park, and Dr. Rose gives him his first book of magic, his new teacher, replacing Mr. Brisby, who just disappeared. And while taking this book home to read it, he is followed. Then Dr. Rose murders Tim Stalker. Tim then makes a wand out of a screwdriver and goes looking for his missing mother with his newfound magic. When he goes to where the wand leads him, he's ambushed by some robed figures, and then he just destroys this mob of robed figures easily with a burst from his magic screwdriver. Then that night he goes home and he cannot sleep. He feels bad for what he's done. And then he goes to school the next day and learns that Mr. Brisby was actually murdered. He's not coming back. So Dr. Rose gives him the advice to summon a guardian. So later that night he summons a guardian owl that helps him to sleep. The next day at school, Tim and Ellie start getting closer, a little bit of flirting, romantic suggestions. And they are working on a project in the library, and he needs to reach a book, and Tyler, the bully character, catches Tim using magic in the library. The librarian punishes them for creating a mess, damaging some books. And he seems like an evil guy, to be honest with you, this librarian. But later Tim goes home and he crafts a key that will allow him to enter into the dreaming. Which brings us to the beginning of Books of Magic number 5, where we do see Dream, the white, featured on the cover, the Dream Castle back there. It's a pretty epic cover, if you ask me. You see his guardian owl, Yo-Yo, helping him there to read a book in this barren wasteland of the dreaming. So, in this one, Tim enters the dreaming. He finds the stairways falling and he falls down. And he still finds his way to the library where he meets with Eve. Eve explains to him some things about how reality might not be the way that you assumed it would be. He takes a book. He meets the new dreaming governor, ruler, weird character thing. He actually, we learn, assumes that this is the new version of dreaming, a new incarnation. Then on his way back out, traveling, he meets with Cain and Abel, and they have some kind of spat. When it's revealed that Tim has actually been in the dreaming for about 3 days, just sleeping here, but awake at the same time. He meets Matthew. Matthew gives him a little pieces of advice about Yo-Yo. And meanwhile, the evil librarian back in school kidnaps Ellie and traps her in a book with his magic. Then we are led to number 6. Books of Magic number 6. And in this one, Tim returns after being gone for 3 days. His father is upset with him, telling him, you better be going to school and shit, what's wrong with you? So then he goes to school. He learns that Ellie was kidnapped, and he learns that Dr. Rose killed Mr. Brisby, but he still goes with her to find Ellie. When they find out that the librarian is the one that kidnapped her. And then later on, they hope to find his mother with this magic map once they find Ellie, because Ellie's not as safe as his mother would be, because she's a magician after all. So in this we find our perception of things may lead us to assume things that may not really be so true. And even when people convince us of some things, that also may not be true. So Tim is in an incredible situation where he cannot trust others, but he also cannot trust his own perception completely. So he's kind of figuring out who he can trust. For some reason, right now, he is trusting Dr. Rose. So that's where we're at, all caught up. Next we'll review the 4 comics beginnings with the number 7s. So we still have a couple weeks before Lucifer and Books of Magic number 7 come out, but we have the House of Whispers here. We'll do more with this one next time. It's a really cool Mardi Gras cover, which did come out around Mardi Gras time, which is kind of cool. And then we find the Dreaming, where we'll talk more about it next time. We do finally get some story about the dream. Figure out why he abandoned Lucian when he encountered him. So it's really cool seeing some of these come together and go apart. For example, in Lucifer, we find some ravens being associated with Sycorax, which alludes to Matthew coming in. We find Timothy of the Books of Magic going into the Dreaming to find some books, which the Dreaming is the characters are interacting with Timothy, and also with the House of Whispers characters being in there as well. So a lot of stuff is crossing over already, but it seems like it's coming together and it's gonna go back out again. So we'll see what the next season, like 7 through 12, seems like will be a little change of pace. We've already got things going in different directions at the end of 6, so see what this next storyline where it will take us, and then we'll get back to these 1x1s, as it were, with weekly releases. So look for the next one. Will be the beginning, all 7s. If you enjoy this video, please press like. If you want to see more, hopefully this video could help you get caught up if you're just getting into any of these Sandman Universe comics. So to keep getting updates on what's going on, subscribe. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to all of the subscribers so far. I think we have 4. It's a good start. I just like talking about this and hope that more people will begin commenting, which this is a good chance. What do you like about any one of these? Lucifer, Books of Magic, House of Whispers, The Dreaming, all of this crossover action that is going on. I know that in other comics it happens all the time, but I just like the subject matter of this a little more than superheroes, just my taste. And so share with your friends if you like, for them to get interested, if you also like these types of things. Again, thanks for joining me. See you next time.